Hi guys, welcome to my messy laptop desktop workspace. Snow day today, even though Lewis and Clark didn't call us off. A lot of you guys texted me and said you weren't going to make it in, and I kind of understood that because some of you guys drive from pretty far away. So no point in getting into an accident or being stuck in a ditch when we can just do this online. Isn't the internet wonderful? Isn't YouTube wonderful that we can still have class? I know you guys are just so happy about that. But anyway, this week's assignment is pretty simple. It's more of a compositional assignment than a technical per se, but it's a compositional elements that if you kind of pay a little bit of attention to, you can make boring photographs look kind of neat by hiding a couple of these elements in there. People may not recognize that they're seeing these basic elements of design, but subconsciously they see it and appreciate it, and it can sometimes make really cool photos. It's really simple stuff to do. Some of you guys who have maybe done film photography have probably done the texture pattern shape assignment, which is part of what this is, but since we're doing digital and we're not shooting black and white film, we can do color, texture, pattern, shape. So that's basically what you guys are going to be doing. Examples of color, texture, pattern, and shape. Real quick, I'm going to pop up on my screen a couple examples. This is from Flickr. It's in my gallery. I have two different galleries for color, texture, pattern. So you guys can always go there and check this out. But first example here we have is a texture. The idea of doing texture in a photograph is to be able to find something that if you were able to feel it with your own hands, you would feel that it does have a texture, whether it's spiky or soft or fuzzy or rough or whatever. It would be a pattern, or not a pattern, I'm sorry, it would be a texture you'd be able to feel. So the idea with doing two-dimensional is to utilize something called dynamic range. Dynamic range, for most of you guys probably would not know what dynamic range is, but when we talk about dynamic range, it is the whitest whites and the darkest darks. So you basically have your highlights and your shadows, and using really good solid shadows and really good highlights and then some midtones in between, you can create something that almost looks three-dimensional, so that if someone were to look at your photograph, if they've never seen the texture that you are representing, they can get a pretty good idea of what that would feel like just by looking at your photograph. So they could tell if something is rough or if it's soft or if it's fuzzy or, different types of things. So here we have tree bark. Tree barks, all of us know what a tree feels like. Oh, sorry guys. All of us know what a tree bark feels like. It's rough, it's not soft, it's not fuzzy. So here we have nice shadows here. Look at my little magnifying glass if you can. Follow along. We have shadows so we can see that we have cracks and things. Highlights to counteract the low lights so we can see that this actually has 3-dimension to it. So a tree bark, if you guys want to venture outside in the cold, you might be able to do tree. The idea with textures, you really want to fill the frame completely with as much of the texture as you can. So keep that in mind, that you want to try to get, maybe not physically close up, because sometimes your camera can't focus well if you're physically close up. But you guys can zoom. I'm sure most of your cameras do have zoom to them. So stand back to where you can get a nice good focus. Remember, pushing your focal button halfway, your shutter button halfway down will lock your autofocus, and then you can push the button the rest of the way. But use your zoom to zoom in if you want. Try to avoid using digital zoom. Hopefully you guys would be close enough you wouldn't need digital zoom, but don't be afraid to zoom. That's not editing. Cropping and cutting is editing, but zooming is not. So our next example here, these might be kind of mixed up. So here we have an example of color. The idea of color is you want to find something that's colorful. It doesn't have to have a bunch of colors. It could be one bright color, but you want to try to put it against a background that's white or black or gray or very muted color so that the colors of the object actually pop. So here we have like a Rubik's Cube keychain here, and you see that it was photographed against something that's slightly gray, so it makes the color stand out even more. So the idea is just to represent something that's colorful. Alright. Here we have something, it's couple different examples here. Some people have argued in classes, in past classes, that this could be a texture, and I guess it could. It does have some nice shadows and stuff, so I'm sure we could see, if we wanted to run our hands across this, that it's not solid. It has depth to it, so we could actually feel that it does have texture. But this was actually more of an example of pattern, or it could be an example of shape. Pattern is anything that's repeated 3 or more times. So there's lots of patterns out in the world. You can create your own patterns. I think I have a couple examples of that. Here, gosh darn it, silly window, I swear. So we have pattern, but shape is basically just representing a not 3D, a geometric shape, a commonly known geometric shape. So that could be circle, square, rectangle, octagon, pentagon, diamond, oval, something that is geometric, very, very basic geometric shapes. Let's go on here. Here we have a student took this photo, and here we have a couple different things. We have some texture. You can definitely tell that this fish is not soft and cuddly because it does have spikes on it and barbs. But the person who took it actually wanted it to represent shape. So this is kind of an abstract shape. It's a circle, obviously. So it doesn't have to be exact. It can be an abstract idea, just as long as it's a geometric shape that we could identify. And Flickr is moving very slowly for me today. Here we have an example of color. It's not the brightest color. It's kind of a lower exposed photo, but it still works. Here we have colored pencils against a black backdrop. So, I mean, it's very simple. These things you guys can either find as is, or you can set some things up. Definitely want to get creative with this as best you can. Here we have an example. This could be pattern, because there are some, like the bricks. The bricks here are repeated. We have a repeating pattern here in the circle, but we also have a circle. So there could be a lot of different things. This is one of those things where it's really important that you label it what you intend it to be, because these things definitely can fall in many different categories. Alright. I'm trying to keep this under 10 minutes for this one video, and Flickr is not advancing fast enough for me, which is aggravating me to no end. Come now, Flickr. Flickr seems to be stuck and locking up on me. There we go. Here we have something that's an example of color against a black backdrop. It makes the colors stand out even more. Trying to keep an eye on my time here. Here we have an example of color, crayons against a white backdrop. Very shallow depth of field, as you can see. If this were a little more in focus, we could consider it pattern. It could also be shape too. The tips of the crayons are not rectangles, or triangles. So you could take a picture of a crayon tip and it could be considered a triangle. Here we have pattern. It's kind of a varied pattern. It's a pattern. We have color, and we do have shape. Here we have a pattern. Some people have argued that this could be texture also, because we definitely can tell that it is three-dimensional. I like it better for pattern. If we could zero in on some of these, the tips of the screws, they could even be considered shape, because they are slightly triangular. So we can have a little bit of fun of trying to incorporate as many as possible and as many different elements as we can. Here we have pattern, and we also have shape. Some people have said that if we zeroed in on this leaf, it could be considered color also, because it is a colorful leaf against a very mundane background color. So here we yeah. I'm running out of time, so I'm going to stop here and start back up on another video. So I'll see you guys in a second.